Okay, shall we get going?
Go for
All right. Evening. So I'm Brian Day, Chair of the Finance Committee for Town of Lakeville. It is November 2nd, 5 o'clock. We're at the Lakeville Public Library. We're also streaming on Facebook and community television right now. No subscription is needed for Facebook. Is there anybody that is recording besides LakeCAM right now? Does not appear to be. All right, we'll take a quick roll call. So myself, Brian Day, is here. Member Costin?
Here.
Blanca?
Here.
Lynch?
Here.
And Member DeRosa is probably joining us in a few minutes. We're also joined by Town Accountant Todd Hassett and Town Administrator Ari Sky this evening. So thank you very much. And we also have in the audience Mr. Rich LaCamera, Chairman of the Select Board.
You want to see it? You want to see it?
No, I don't want to hear.
Come on up.
I'm in enough trouble.
There was nothing better tonight, Rich?
I think it's important, some of the things.
All right, so we'll get going. We've got kind of some lighter ministerial stuff towards the beginning. So Finance Committee announcements, nothing major here. I did just want to thank Town Administrator Sky and KP Law Town Council for putting on the open meeting law training last week. Some of the members that had free time coming up in their calendars are going to the Annual Association of Town Finance Committees this Saturday. So it's a full day of training on various topics. So we'll see what we learn there. Special town meeting for the town of Lakeville is coming up at Pontiac High School November 14th at 6:30 p.m. And does anybody else have anything for Ari, Todd, anything worth mentioning? Cool. So is everybody that's here, have you had a chance to look over the meeting minutes that we had yet to approve?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Any concerns over those minutes? Were you okay with their content?
Yes.
Okay, so if there's no suggestions for changes, I'll entertain a motion to approve the Finance Committee meeting minutes from March 1st, April 25th, May 16th, June 13th, July 11th, and recently October 24th, all from 2022.
Brian, before you vote, can I abstain from the March 21st and April 25th because I wasn't a member at that time?
You may, according to the town council, participation is not required to
Okay.
essentially enter the records into the minutes into the record, but we do still have quorum even without yourself. So feel free to do as you like.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, well, I'll do roll call vote. Member Lynch,
Aye.
Member Costin,
Aye.
Member Blanca.
I, with the exception of abstaining for March 21st and April 25th.
Okay, Member Day, aye. So motion carries. Okay, up next, actually, yeah, let's do the item number 4. So that's the Regional Finance Subcommittee. We'll see if Katie can get here for number 3. So one of the final nominations we have left is we need to appoint somebody to Freetown Lakeville Regional School District Finance Subcommittee. Chairman Darren Beal was our appointee before he left, so we still have that nomination open. Is there anybody here who would like to be that nomination? Or does Katie win because she can't stand up for herself?
That's what happens when you're late.
All right.
Can I just ask, who did it the prior year? We're down. Did you do it for 2 years? Or?
I think Darren was the year before as well.
Did it for 2 years?
So Darren was, but they didn't have one, didn't have a meeting last year.
Yeah.
Say that again?
They didn't have a meeting of the Regional Finance Committee last year.
Oh, really?
They did not, yeah. It was not for lack of trying.
Oh, okay. Is it a requirement that they,
It's,
is that
it's
technically
not a statutory requirement, but it certainly is,
unusual?
a structure that exists in
Right.
In other words, the regional committees are required, they're not required to have a regional committee as a prerequisite for passing a budget, but they should. To that, I'll be that as it may, I will say that there was a great deal of coordination between us and the school district.
Okay.
Process.
Okay.
I spoke with them, I communicated with the superintendent often. And, but it was all communication kind of at the staff level that was going on. So the statute, sort of the more official structures weren't really used. And, like I said, I'm fine either way, but, the regional committee does exist for that structure.
Okay. Did you have interest, Chris, or just curious?
And I think my availability this year is going to be limited because being on the school Old Colony School Building Committee. So
Okay.
I'm hesitant, because I mean, that's additional time
Yep.
required, so I don't think I'm,
I mean, Rich, if you wouldn't mind me asking, how often in a normal year would you see that those people meet?
Well, I would say, well, last year we didn't meet at all. We're supposed to meet. And so the previous year, I think there was 3 meetings.
I would say there should be several. I would say there should be 2 or more than 3.
Really?
2 or 3.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
so it's just a,
But one of the problems that we're anticipating is that we have the superintendent, okay?
Yep.
And the superintendent doesn't have the necessary experience of regional schools, so that's gonna take a while.
They are unique.
So it's probably gonna be more. And what we're trying to do, which we did, and he did on his own, was say, hey guys, this is what we got to spend, and with Todd, as well. And so we can't go over this limit.
Right.
Okay, so we signed this, there was a framework on what the budget, should be. And that would be the first goal of the first meeting, which we're asking for right after town meeting thereabouts.
Right.
So,
Honestly, in my mind, that should be occurring. I mean, my intention would be very early on, be having conversations with the administration about what our ability is. Yes, there would be the more official aspect of going between the committees and so on, but I really would hate for them to be surprised at that point. Because at that point, they're going to have a budget well along.
I mean, if there's nobody that has a dying desire to be on that, I'll nominate myself as tribute if you want. I think you can handle a couple more meetings a year, that should be all right.
Yeah, if something frees up with my schedule, I can let you know and I can try to back you up on it.
Okay.
If that helps you.
Sure.
I just don't want to commit for something I can't honor with my travel.
Yep,
we
that's totally
can't do
fine.
a primary and alternate, can we?
I don't believe so.
No.
But I mean, if you want, somebody wants to make a motion to nominate me, that's fine.
I'll always make a motion to nominate. Second.
All right, we got a first and a second. Apparently I'm always being nominated. Member Lynch?
Aye.
Member Costa?
Aye.
Member Plonka?
Aye.
Member Day? Aye. Okay,
usually
Very much.
All meetings are at 6:30 at night, so.
that's fine. Okay.
They're usually right around 2 a.m.
Right when I'm getting to bed. All right, so Katie hasn't joined us yet, so let's go on to, let's do the number 3, the reserve fund transfer request. So, Mr. Hassett, thank you for sending this over.
Sure.
So, do you want to speak to it? Do you want me to?
Yeah, no, I'll take a quick run at it.
Go for it.
Just about a year ago, the fire chief approached the select board about the town's interest in applying for a federal grant to assist the fire department. We refer to it as the AFG grant, Assistance to Firefighters Grant. So the fire chief applied, and these grants, if awarded, also require a 5% local match toward the overall equipment purchase or whatever the case may be. So the feds there wasn't a decision on the application until this past August. So the chief hadn't put any money in his budget for a local match. He didn't know whether we were going to be awarded it, but he did learn in August that the grant had been awarded to Lakeville for just under $219,000. So our 5% match is just under $11,000, which is what we're asking the Finance Committee to consider transferring from your reserve fund tonight. The fire chief had this is to replace our breathing apparatus for the firefighters, SCBA equipment. Like many of the things in public safety, in terms of ordering, there's a lead time and the costs keep escalating. So he took it upon himself to try to get the maximum amount of equipment before the price increase went. So this equipment has been ordered already. So we're not doing this in the usual sequence, if you will.
Right. Any questions from board members?
How much is in the reserve fund?
Budget of 150.
Yeah, 150, I think was the
it's
budget.
150,
150
yeah.
hasn't been touched yet. Yeah.
Yeah, there's been no action this year.
Now, I think, was it, we were originally going to use capital improvement funds for these eventually?
Yeah, that's what we would normally, in a normal cycle, do. It would have been part of his capital request.
Okay. But that isn't part of the capital request at this time.
Right,
All right.
correct.
All right, so it's not such that at a later time we could take that money and move it back to reserve. We're just going to basically pay it out and say, job well
think
done
so.
for saving money because it was going to go up again.
Right. Now, certainly, at the special in May, if the committee felt you needed more added back to the reserve fund, we could do that at the special within the annual.
Okay. All right. I saw the pictures. I saw the meeting with all of our representatives and such. It looked like they got a lot of equipment to replace a lot of old stuff. So that's good. I mean, personally, the shining light here, I think, is, we're shelling out about 11 grand, but got 218,000 additional dollars worth of equipment. So I think that, congratulations to the fire department on winning that grant. Any other questions or discussion? Or?
No,
All right.
read through it, I was pretty good with it.
Cool. Anybody like to make a motion to approve or not approve the transfer request?
Motion to approve.
Okay, a second.
Second.
All right, roll call. Member Lynch?
Aye.
Member Costin?
Aye.
Member Plonka?
Aye.
And Day, aye. So, all right, please do pass on our thanks to LFD for winning that large of a grant. Hopefully that gets a lot of contribution.
No, it would have been, probably would have been the CIP for this year, if this hadn't happened. In fact, almost certainly would be.
It's just the one.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Thanks, Doug. I appreciate it.
So, Ari, you said it would have
It
normally?
would have been
Okay.
Yeah, normally, yep.
for next year, if that happened, because they were end of life.
Right, so in other words, if it hadn't passed,
We would have had to pay for it
You would-
ourselves.
request it again through the capital.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we would have been looking at a $200,000 nugget instead of
Oh, right.
11 grand.
Yeah.
Financially, it was a good call.
Yep. Okay, so I think we'll go to number 5. So Member Plonka had an interest in doing this, and we've got some new members, and I think it'd be good to go back and just speak with those who help us the most during a fiscal year and setting everything in motion. And I know that there are articles on town meeting that could change how things are and how things will be. But let's go through at least what you would expect a typical budget year cycle to look like, and then whether or not you want to speak to that article now or later, totally completely up to you or if members have questions.
The first thing to bear in mind is that this is a theoretical calendar that is totally dependent on Article 6 passing. So if Article 6 didn't pass, you'd have a budget process that looks a lot like last year probably. The main point of that being January 30th, which is a deadline that is in the current bylaw by which the budget is required to be presented to, delivered to the board. The Article 6 does, I guess I'll get into Articles, I have to get into Article 6 a little bit.
That's okay, yeah. As you wish.
Article 6 basically reflects current practice as far as the flow of the budget information, which there's some inconsistency right now in the bylaws between the Town Administrator Act, which says the Town Administrator shall present the budget, and then the older parts of the bylaw, which said that, the department will request, big budget request to the board. It's kind of inconsistent. So Article 6 basically reflects current practice, which is that I gather the information and then present the budget to the boards. But the other part that's a bit problematic is this January 30th deadline, January 31st deadline for presenting the budget. That probably was okay at a certain time, but the problem with the January 31st deadline under the current paradigm is that the state the governor doesn't typically present his budget until the third week or so of January. Mm-hmm. At which point the school districts have to take that information, get the Chapter 7 money, work it through, and come up with a budget proposal. So the earliest that they can get us anything is sometime in probably mid-ish February. So presenting a budget in January, in a lot of ways, is about 60% of the budget is a guess. So and frankly, it's not necessary because we don't have town meeting until several months later. There's no strong functional reason to have to do the budget that early. So what Article 6 does is it requires the board to approve, requires the town administrator to present and the board to approve a budget calendar every year. And then that calendar will, is a little more dynamic and nimble in the sense that if we know of something happening, we can adjust, but generally it will be more reflective of what's really going on. So the budget you see here is what we've come up with so far, budget calendar you see here is what we've come up with so far when it comes to, assuming the Article 6 passes with how we generally would see things going. Much of it is similar to what happened last year in terms of process. It's just timing that's different. So, we're moving towards our tax classification hearing on the 21st, hopefully. Our internal budget kickoff on November 30th, which is a bit later than it was last year. The deadline for the proposed budget to the board, and we proposed to do something similar to what we did last year, which was frankly just more efficient to have the board and the finance committee get the information at the same time. The budget would go February 13th, which is about 3 weeks later than it was last year. And that would roll out to budget reviews in early March. I believe last year it was second week of February. Then we'll have the education budgets approved in March and be able to go forward with the warrant in time for through March into the town meeting date in May. That's generally what we're looking at in terms of structure. So it is very similar to what we did last year, it's just a little later.
So the January 30th cutoff is now moved to February 13th.
Well, that would be, the January 30th cutoff is moved to whatever the board approves it to be. So in other words, this is theoretical for two reasons. One is that Article 6 is coming up for a couple of weeks.
Right.
And two, I haven't brought anything to the board yet saying to get the board to approve a budget calendar.
Oh, I understand, I understand all that.
But the effective result would be that. That's right, Chris. It would be, January 30th would be 2 weeks later.
Right, and that gives us, if I understand it, a little more time, because you're saying the school budget is generally not ready until mid-February.
There'd be
Right.
two major advantages. One is that we'll have a proposed governor's budget in time for us to go to print. We really didn't. We kind of guessed it this last year.
Oh, that comes out in January?
Late January,
January.
yes.
And then the earliest I've ever seen in my time in Massachusetts, which is, by Massachusetts standards, not that long, I've only been here since 2013. But in my time in Massachusetts, the earliest I've seen a governor's budget come out probably be Baker's first year. Mm-hmm. He did it at the MMA meeting, it was all big deal. And that was like January 17th or 18th.
Yeah.
And that's the earliest I've ever seen the governor's budget come out. Okay. Typically, it's more like sometime in the 20s, 25th.
But it needs to be by end of January.
The governor's budget can be whenever he wants
Well,
it.
it could, I shouldn't say needs to be, theoretically.
Usually,
Typically.
So the thing we ran into this past year was that we had some indications because the joint revenue hearing had happened, things like that. So we were able to kind of sort of guesstimate what the revenue numbers would look like, but we really didn't know. And this time we'll have each one. We'll actually have numbers and draft cherry sheets that we'll be able to use.
Seems like a no-brainer. Why was that January 30th? Why do we always hear that January 30th deadline when we
It's in the bylaws.
it's in the bylaws.
It's in the bylaws, and I think, gosh, I have no idea how old that goes back to a long time ago. That January 30th, right? Yeah. Just been.
Well,
The
the
budgets were smaller.
I think the timelines have been different too. I do. Yeah.
Probably less reliance on state or federal aid at those points too. So
But the regional schools are highly dependent on Chapter 70
Right, sure.
state aid,
Yeah,
so.
we're actually not that dependent on state aid as
No, the town
localities go.
isn't.
The town isn't. It's
I know
the
it's
district.
schools.
The district really is.
Districts, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like Article 6 is a no-brainer. I can't see why it would be opposed by
I
anybody.
think you end up with a better document. I think you end up with January 30th first wasn't undoable. It's just that the level of uncertainty was greater.
Right.
And we had to make a number of calls, as you recall, during the spring, because when the school budgets came out, it turned out that one was higher and one was lower, and we had to kind of flip stuff around, and and the state numbers were a little different, that kind of thing. It's just reduce uncertainty by some 10, 20% or whatever.
Okay, thank you.
And like you said earlier, the net of it is we're not going to town meeting until May anyways.
Right.
So
It's not going to affect anything when it comes to that.
Yeah.
It'll just mean that the budget reviews will take place a little bit later. That's all.
Good. Thank you.
any other questions or comments
Thank
on
you.
this? No?
Thank you.
Sorry I was late.
That's okay.
Getting a
Well,
call.
you didn't miss much. Don't worry. The fun's just beginning. All right, cool. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate that. And I guess we'll probably shorten discussion on Article 6 later, which is good.
Yeah.
All right, so left, was hoping we could just do a quick review of capital plan items that are still outstanding, and preferably before this fiscal year, since we're still in this fiscal year. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to look at the list that was provided. I had a couple items circled. I don't know if there's a preference to just quickly go through the whole thing, or if there's certain ones that people have interest in.
We'll be happy to answer any questions either in person, if you want to send us an email, we're happy to answer that way too.
Yeah, I've got a handful, nothing too crazy, I believe. So the list that we're given goes by departments, and then each department is sorted by fiscal year. So like we do have a handful out there. If we look at the 155 technology, that's got a permitting line back through 2018 of 10,000. That's still at 10,000. I was just curious if was that the anticipated money for the permit software for fire in 2021?
No, that was for the inspection office.
Oh, okay.
The fire one is still there under 2021 permit.
Okay.
So this is one of the ones, Brian, that I have highlighted as potentially available
Oh, okay.
that will not be expended.
Gotcha. Is that, I mean, you're the man with all the history here. Is it in our interest of time if you want to pick out certain ones here that you're like already looking at?
Oh, sure, I can tell
Suggesting
you.
to close?
I can give you, yeah, I probably should have done that
That's all right.
in this document, but the first two items are completed. So those, and they're modest balances, but those we'll look to repurpose in the spring.
The third one mostly too.
The third one,
Recently paid.
yeah, depending on how the fall town meeting decides to
Project for that, yeah.
proceed.
When you say the first three, you're talking about in 122 select board, those first three items?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm sorry, yes, on the select board, yeah.
So Todd, you're noting that the balance, that's the amount that's left over?
Yes.
Not needed?
And it's not needed, the projects are
Since-
completed.
Okay, yeah, okay, right.
Yep. Under technology, just the first item I think is likely. It was originally intended for the inspection department software implementation. That's been completed for a while.
I have something I can say about the second and third item.
And the second, third are still
So
active.
The major issue there has been supply chain issues.
Well, let's say back, we're talking.
Technology improvements.
Oh, technology. Oh, okay, we're in tech, I got it, okay.
There's a whole bunch of some servers and some switches and things along those lines that our IT, Bob McNally's been ordering.
Yep.
And they've been on order for months and months and months.
I
He
believe it.
just recently got notice that some of the switches are coming in.
Okay.
So
Great.
So will that money then be
it
used?
will be used. Yeah, just took a little while because this technology is
So-
just slow right now.
Looking at this, there's no quick way to see what expenditures are complete.
No,
What's-
you're right.
Okay.
They weren't flagged or
Okay.
highlighted.
And I didn't think to ask, so that's
No.
my apologies for not making that
You'll
statement.
know better.
I just thought we had a windfall, so I was.
Some small ones.
The,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think we need to check on the Board of Health permitting software. I don't know if that's been
oh,
completed
that
yet.
could be, yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
10,000, that's part of that, so that you need to review that.
So maybe BOH as well.
Yeah, I'm on the fence on that one, but it has been out there for a while, 2018. Under the police department, the two older cruiser balances are available. And this year,
We can't find a cruiser for
the
$1,800.
chief is intending to purchase replace two cruisers.
Yeah, that's under the 2022.
Yes,
Okay. Yep.
yes,
Yep, that's still open. Okay.
That's a chief's plan for 2 cruises?
yes, sir, two cruisers. Under the fire department, the inflatable boat, small balance is available. The ambulance replacement, that's a $350,000 I did try to note the borrowings versus outright, straight fundings. To date, there's still $3,800 on the table that the chief may use for more equipping of the ambulance. So I'm not certain of that balance. fully expended the feasibility funds for the elementary school windows project. And the next phase of that, or the construction phase,
Article 4.
is Article 4 for the upcoming town meeting. Under Public Works, a couple of items. The skid steer has been purchased, so that $3,000 is available. The tow-behind air compressor, which we did at the May special town meeting, has been purchased, and that's in a available balance, as well as the front-end loader, $9,000. So there are 3 items under.
Street sweeper too. Pretty sure the street sweeper's been purchased as well.
Yes, I apologize. Yeah, the street sweeper, yeah. I was just doing this quick.
Is the bud permitting project complete, or is there still some piles left to get moved off?
That's ongoing, and you'll see it's listed there twice.
Oh, good.
We had a 2020 appropriation and then another supplemental last year for $25,000. So that is ongoing.
Mr. Chairman, explain the reason why is because you probably already know, waiting for DEP to approve the way they can dispose of it and so forth. And the engineering part has already been done, so now it's a question of having to approve it so we can move it out of there.
And am I thinking of the same project where there's like fewer and fewer places taking it and it's further and further away
There is,
too?
but I think they finally approved one in Bridgewater from what I understand.
Oh, okay. No, let's hope.
The Route 79 improvements under the Public Works section, that was a $2.3 million borrowing authorized a couple of years ago. To date, we've spent about $300,000. This is just the town's share, and this will lead to a much larger federally funded construction.
Most of this money will be the right-of-way acquisition.
Right.
Which is going to be picking up speed probably early next year.
Calendar year.
Calendar year, yeah. We had a meeting on that just last week, actually, so we're getting close to noticing. We're getting close to notifying abutters.
And the state's kicking in, what is it, between 10 and 12,000 construction money for that project?
$1 million, yeah.
No roadway improvements for 2022 yet?
We've been using state funds first.
Oh, okay.
A couple of projects were just completed using
Right.
state money.
Yeah. Precinct Street and
Montgomery was paved recently.
Montgomery Street.
Montgomery, yeah, that was one of the, and we did get some additional wrap, they call it,
Right.
winter,
Yeah, so, and
forget
actually the
another-
state passed another supplemental budget for '22, which I don't know what's in there specifically, but there was mention about more road relief, so
yeah.
maybe some more money coming our way.
Under Board of Health, a little further down, hazardous waste day. This is an older appropriation, and the town has been having hazardous waste day each year and just sort of working this down. I think when it's fully expended, we'll do something through the budget rather than, this really isn't a capital item, if you will. But that's how it was originally voted. So that will be expended. We already have expended some funds this year. It was about $8,000 if I recall correctly. So there's a little residual balance left for the next event next year. The Council on Aging preliminary design for the, you'll recall that was from some special funds. The town also received a earmarked state grant for $50,000 toward the senior center improvements.
So it's possible that will.
So again, we will
Be spent a little
use state funds first before we use our funds.
We may get that back. That may not be needed.
Or we'll repurpose it.
Or we'll repurpose it toward the next phase of
Because
the,
it wasn't free cash, it wasn't general fund money, it was developer contribution has to be used for that purpose, so.
So if there's a balance left, like you said on the ambulance, 3,800,
yep.
and you said they're gonna use it for something, do they have to go back to the CapEx team, the committee, and ask to reuse it? Because that's not what's approved, so if they're gonna buy something
What
else.
was approved in that case was the vehicle and equipping it.
Yeah.
So what I don't know tonight is whether the chief has fully equipped
Right,
this unit. I think he has. I think that's a residual balance. Um,
Mr. Chair, if you get a chance, this new ambulance is very, very impressive. You ought to go take a tour of it and see what's in that vehicle. It's unbelievable. The new technology that's been added to that vehicle. So just go see the chief and he'll give you a tour.
Yeah, a couple things on the parks, unless you want to.
No, go ahead.
So the haunted house demolition, obviously that's done, that's residual money.
Yep.
Something a little bit hinky on the tennis courts, just to be aware of. So as you recall this, Mr. Chairman, back several years ago, the $28,000 was approved for the to repaint the tennis courts. So the Parks Commission was unsuccessful in getting a bid that worked. It ended up being $44,000 or so, and the select board approved the use of ARPA money to pay for that. You can't commingle without town meeting vote ARPA, and so we just made an ARPA project.
Okay.
So at some point there'll be a request to repurpose that $28,000, and that'll have to go through town meeting and so on.
Did, I don't know if this is the right venue or not, but did Parks ever try to reclaim any money from the unauthorized repairs and such that happened on those courts?
Nothing I'm aware of.
Okay.
Excuse me, the damages on that court, that was due to not tennis-related activities, correct?
It's my understanding.
Isn't there a way we recoup from them? Isn't that an organized event?
I'm not sure. I'm not totally familiar with it.
It was, if I remember correctly, it was use of a court that wasn't in the contract to be used in the first place.
Okay.
So it's just historical.
Yeah, the Historical Commission has 3 open articles, and there's been no contracting or spending. We have inquired back last fiscal year as to the status, and not sure we ever got a response, but.
No, I mean, it has to, there's COVID, 2 years of COVID. They couldn't get anybody, a consultant to do the work, so. It has been brought to the attention by Ari to, let me help them to try to find people to do it. But those are 3 important projects, that have been funded and ready to go. So it's just very.
Would Article 7 end up using any of those funds, the preservation restrictions, or is that entirely independent of?
Now, Article 7 is targeted entirely, that's what I think you're talking about. Yeah, it's targeted entirely at Old Town Hall.
Okay.
So actually, the driver behind that was, if you look up in facilities, the first one, the townhouse roof.
Yep.
So there's $30,000 approved back in 2017. I think that probably was not a realistic estimate for what that project would cost. We actually inquired and explored the idea of applying for a grant through the MHC, Mass Historical Commission, last year, and which is a 50-50 match. So we had 30,000, we become 60, which probably would have been enough to do the roof. However, investigating that grant, we learned that the only facilities that are eligible for this funding are facilities that receive a certain historic designation. So that's what this is.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks.
Can you say what they love that, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Well, Brian probably knows. The roof on that building is a shingled roof, and very, very expensive shingles. And so when we looked at it, the cost would double, almost triple the cost to replace that. Fortunately, the roof wasn't leaking, so the decision was made to hold off to see, if we could get any funding. But
If things
I'm
change.
not going to do it with $30,000 anymore.
You say shingle, is it?
Wood shake.
Wood shingles.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Wood shake or shake.
Old school.
Shakes.
Which are going for very cheap money right now.
Yeah, that'd be fun to watch.
Somebody was telling me like a square of cedar shingles is like $600 right now.
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me? I gave a box away 2 years ago. I should have held onto it as an investment. I think is that everything? I think we've hit everything. Nothing that does not have reason behind it, I would say. So thank you very much. Any other questions from board members that you've got, or things you'd like to see in the future?
And again, any follow-up questions, please don't hesitate, just drop us a line.
Great.
Respond.
In the future, is there a way you could possibly amend the report so it shows once the expenditures are complete? And
Sure.
to identify what the residual balance versus.
Absolutely.
That'd be fine.
Yes, sir, will do. Yep.
Because Todd, some of these, is my correct, some of them would go back to free cash, some of them might need to be reappropriated depending on what the original.
Yeah, what we've been doing in recent years is just packaging this and repurposing
It's
the
capital-
funds
it's capital
for new
projects.
capital rather
Yeah.
than use free cash or taxation.
Yeah, these capital
Yeah.
projects, I think they all have to go through town meeting, so, yeah. You know the main event?
All right, does anybody need like a bathroom break or something before we got to
Guess we're going to the articles.
So, we had our initial review of the select board on October 24th, so thank you for everybody that is going through this a second time. Basically, for folks that aren't already aware, the town bylaws state that every article of town meeting has to be presented to the finance committee for some form of recommendation. It can be a recommendation for approval, not for approval, or flat out no recommendation, as long as we've reviewed it. And we've done a mix of all of those the past few town meetings. I'm glad we took a second meeting to do this because Member Costin wasn't able to join us the last one. So if you've got any questions on certain articles, we can do this a couple different ways. I went through just to try to save some time if possible, but members feel free to say otherwise. I tried to pick out articles that we probably don't have much bearing on whatsoever. And I'll list off what those are. It was Article 8, the Community Preservation Committee Bylaw Update. Article 9, the Zoning Board Associate Member being added. 10, allowing certain board members to be able to miss a meeting for a special permit but still vote on it. Article 11, removing off-premises signage from one of the zoning bylaws that was missed in a previous change in bylaws. Article 12, business district having their setbacks updated. Article 14, removing the district development opportunity district, which I just took a guess, none of us here would be against. Article 17, the article about reusable materials and equipment being stored in yards. 18, adding licensed junk dealers to the business zone. 19, the article about junk, old metal, and secondhand article updates, making sure they keep books that can be inspected and such. Article 21, some property transfers from the treasurer collector to the select board. Those are properties from tax title foreclosures that need to be transferred to the select board in order to sell them. Article 22, sprinklers for lodging homes, houses, or boarding houses. And Article 23, acceptance of Ledger Drive as a public way. So my gut feeling was all of those we likely would have no recommendation on. If anybody feels otherwise, we can certainly speak to our heart's content. Otherwise, I was going to suggest we package those up as no recommendation and move it to the other ones.
Do we still have to vote on each one individually?
I believe we could make a motion that we have no recommendation on 8 through 12, 14, 17 through 19, 21 through 23. And that would be that for those. But if there's any people who would like to discuss, speak to, have a recommendation or no recommendation, by all means.
Why don't we, can I recommend, because that we go through these.
Yeah.
And I've noted down which ones you recommended.
Okay.
And I just haven't had time to go back and assess what you did. And let's go through them, and then we can, and when we get to them, an article that we can look at it. And because, no, they may get to another, make it Article 7. We also vote, so.
Do you want to, because if we go through them individually, that's a vote for every single one, but do you want to go through them, and if we feel it's likely none,
Yeah,
save those for one vote?
exactly, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, is everybody good with that? Sure.
fine.
All right, try to get out of here before too long. And Larry, if you've got specific questions, since it's your first opportunity.
Yeah, I read through them, I've asked some questions already, but if I have any questions, I'll speak up.
Okay. So we'll go through, start with number 1. So Article 1, these are essentially unpaid bills. They're bills that, as were explained to us, essentially came in after the fiscal year boundary. So we have to vote to transfer a sum of money. Were there any questions on this article, or do we want to have a motion to approve its passing? Would anybody like to make a motion to recommend a passage?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call. We'll just go, I got a cheat sheet here. I just did it alphabetically. So Day, aye. Member DeRocha,
Aye.
Member Costin?
Aye.
Member Lynch?
Aye.
Member Plonka?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Then we had Article 2, which is whether we'll vote to raise and appropriate from taxation money that is going towards the new facilities manager role, as well as $20,000 in protected clothing for fire. I don't remember any burning questions from the original review. Do you have any new ones there?
Is this a new facilities manager? So we didn't have one currently, and we're,
There was the role previously was a hybrid role with the building inspector. And to get some of these projects moving, we decided to create a dedicated position.
I'm assuming we did a search for best candidate, all that stuff.
It's underway.
Is the 50 the total salary, or is there
No.
more that you already had?
The board approved a salary of $75,000 plus or minus.
Okay.
There's some fairly stringent requirements in the job description that would make that salary necessary at minimum.
So this is to get through the rest of this fiscal year.
Yeah.
On top of the 75 you already had?
No, we don't have anything.
Oh, there's nothing, this will.
This is new, a new
So
position.
it's not 75 plus 50.
No, no, no.
It's 50 for
we
this
would
year, and
be
the following
adding
year it'll be
25.
75.
I'm saying, 'cause I
No, it's not 125.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
No.
Okay.
So 50 for the rest of this fiscal year, and then 75 be included in the next
Right.
fiscal year budget.
Okay.
And again, this role was previously, who was doing the work now?
It was basically several people in the inspectional services division along with the facilities division, and we also used contractual money and sometimes work wasn't getting done. Was also the problem. So
As a facilities manager, it's just like somebody like when we had flooding here, well, we had the faucet that wouldn't turn off here in the library on a Saturday, we had nobody to call.
it's partially that because we have still Rocco help for that, but it's a custodian. It's really somebody who will oversee and make sure that we get to fruition some of these projects like the fire station renovation, the finishing the old library renovation, the stage cover, all these various projects we have, kind of projects that are just kind of sitting out there and developing and growing into inventory that we're not getting done because we don't have really anybody who's got the bandwidth to really focus on it.
Yeah, because permitting numbers have gone through the roof the last few years. I forget the numbers, but just the building rates alone have skyrocketed.
And I mean, there's a philosophical question too. I mean, the building inspector is a fantastic guy, and we all think the world of him. But is it fully appropriate to have the same person in charge of inspecting properties as developing them?
This could be a conflict of interest.
Sure.
I mean, I think it's more characters above reproach, but still, it's not a great look.
Okay, any other questions? No. Anybody like to make a motion to approve?
Second.
All right. Day, aye. DeRosa?
Aye.
Costa?
Aye.
Lynch?
Aye.
Wonka?
Aye.
All right. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, Article 3 was some capital improvements in equipment, firearms replacement for police, $220,000 for schematic design for fire, and $205,000 for schematic design for town hall. Funding source, free cash. I think when we went through the first time, Member DeRocha asked how much we had in certified free cash, and $2.1 million was the answer. Is there any other questions that have come up since our last review, or since you've had a chance to look at it?
No, this doesn't surprise me.
And if I remember correctly, these schematics are more just like floor plan. Here's what you really need to operate efficiently. It's not a
It's a
building
really,
design.
it's the very, very basic first step past a feasibility study of, picking a site and getting a look so that we have something, because at some point we're going to be going to town meeting with these projects. And they're going to be, those will be projects, they'll be the multi-million-dollar projects, there'll be debt exclusions, all sorts of stuff like that. But at this point we don't even have, you don't even have a rendering or basic design. And this will be enough money to get us to the point where we can sort of guess it says what the concept, what it's going to look like, where we're going to, establish for sure exactly how we want to have it situated in the projects, and in the case of the town hall renovation, what we're looking to do. We're working very hard, we're putting intentions to work very hard through the process, try to get the numbers down as much as possible. the numbers that, in the feasibility study, we're considering worst case, and frankly, in many cases wouldn't fly if we had to get there. So what we're trying to do is, but to be able to get there, we really can, unless we have schematic design to work from. Otherwise, it's all speculative, so.
And is there a general, what's the word I'm looking for here? Like usability lifetime on these facilities that we're looking at? Are we looking at 15 years, 20 years, 30 years? Like the town's been growing, we're adding positions, so we're gonna need more.
You mean the current
seats.
situation? I think the fire station is meant to be a long-term solution. It's a 30, 50-year ability. The town hall renovation, it will depend. We have an estimate of what it would take to just, totally renovate that facility and make it into a really effective, modern, well, not modern, but fully accessible and usable facility. And if we were able to do that, then probably good for the long term. I don't know what we're going to be able to afford to do when the time comes, though.
Sure. Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay. Anybody want to make a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right. Day, aye. DeRosa?
Aye.
Costin?
Aye.
Lynch?
Aye.
Plonka?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on. Article 4, so this is the continuation of the project at Osawampset Elementary School, placement of windows and doors. State is kicking in 53.53% of eligible approved costs. I think now obviously it's not in the article the way they have to be written, but the estimated max to Lakeville taxpayers was, I believe, 1.96 million is what they told us.
Yeah.
Somewhere give or take.
There's going to be
Around 2 million.
it's going to be a little two-pager that we're going to have for.
Okay. So that is a healthy amount of money the state will be kicking in.
Yeah.
Any questions? Since our first review.
One thing to just keep in mind, it's not a big deal, but just so don't get confused. The number in this authorization, the 4132294, does not include the 90,000 that was approved for the feasibility study. So the true project cost is 4222.
Okay.
So but that feasibility, but that 90%, that 90,000 was also partially funded by MSBA, 53%.
Okay. It's a very specific number they have.
It is.
Windows are expensive.
Oh, yeah.
Windows are expensive,
Ridiculous.
and especially now.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I think this is probably 50, 70% more expensive than it would have been 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Easy.
And I'm assuming we're moving because the grant money's available, is that?
Yeah, that would be a big reason. I would say the building's in crisis, but it's not good. And I have a lot of blown seals and water infiltration and various issues going on. And
I've never been in the school, so I don't know.
it's also I don't want to overstate it, especially with being on public view. But let's just say that the building was not currently equipped with the most with the most modern security.
That was actually going to be one of my questions. So
Yeah.
part of the windows is doors as well,
Right, the
correct?
exterior doors are going to be
And it's upgraded with security and so forth?
appropriately equipped. Yes.
And that's part of this as well? Okay, that was my,
Yeah,
what I was leading to.
if I remember right, the way they explained it was, I think that where it says like eligible approved project cost was like not just the window and the door, but any of the framing or anything they had to touch to make that happen.
It is, yeah.
And then additionally, security
I
infrastructure.
believe it's 237 windows and 30 doors.
Okay.
So it's a lot of windows and doors.
I mean, they were giving examples such that like if somebody left the door propped open, it would eventually notify somebody and let them know that.
Right.
So somebody would check why and
Yeah.
research.
That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this article is to appropriate 4 million, but again, we're gonna get reimbursed roughly 47.
Right, that's with the language down there in the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So, and again, you noted roughly just under, hair under 2 million.
About 2 million, yes.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
there will be, this language is the language that's been prescribed to us by MSBA. So there's going to be an information sheet they'll have it tell me that kind of lays out in actual numbers. So yeah,
Yeah. The wording's always interesting because you look at it, it feels like a blank check.
it does.
You know?
I don't love the MSBA language myself.
Okay. Any other questions?
No.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Day, aye. DeRoche?
Aye.
Costin?
Aye.
Lynch?
Aye.
Plonka?
Aye.
All right, next up. This is our first appropriation for the CPC, is it?
Yes.
So essentially establishing their first budget. I think there was relatively little discussion. I think these values are all prescribed by the law. They put certain percentages of their budget in each
Yeah, the
bucket.
ratios are, I mean, there's a little bit of risk in the sense that we're using estimated revenue, but we used a number that's substantially lower than the number that the assessor, felt, stated, they felt, stated they, as a collectible amount. It's a little bit unusual to appropriate in the first years like this. CPC felt pretty strongly about doing it.
Okay. Is there a statute requiring it?
Yeah.
No.
No.
In fact, the language in the statute specifically allows, it requires it to be the reserve carve-outs. The language specifically anticipates that the town accountant year-end closeout will just do that in the first year. Because you really don't want, these are estimated numbers, and we're going to have to norm this number correctly anyway when the actual number comes in. So,
Is there a benefit by doing it at this point?
Hey, what's the benefit of this?
the only real benefit I can tell you, other than, well, there are two from the CPC's perspective. One is that they get a budget for administrative expenses, which they didn't have before. The select board had offered to them using a little bit of free cash to get them started. 5,000, I think we offered.
Yeah.
They did not. There were members of the CPC that felt that would have gone against the promise they made to the residents about not using any taxpayer money for the CPA. Okay, so that was one. The second benefit from the CPC's perspective would be that come May, if there's a desire to appropriate for a project, like a town meeting, then they could appropriate money out of FY23 money and spend it right away, as opposed to waiting till July
1st.
Have to wait till
Right.
July 1st.
Right.
So you could buy a couple.
6 or 7 weeks.
By 6 or 7 weeks.
Right.
In theory, they could ask for a special town meeting if they had something they really wanted to appropriate for, but I don't know what the odds, chances of that actually happening would be.
In myself not being familiar enough with the entire CPC law, I mean, are projects under CPC supposed to be expended under monies appropriated prior years, or is it using what you think you're going to get in a year?
It can be both. It's just tricky in the first year.
Okay.
So typically certain state agencies advise,
Right.
just sit back, collect the money for the first year, then it's available to appropriate in year 2.
We did several conversations with DOR about using, we did several conversations with DOR about appropriating estimated revenue, and they assured us that this was kosher from a legal standpoint. Whether it's best practice, is probably debatable.
So the statute requires 10% be reserved or used in each of the 3 areas: historic resources, community housing, open space. So this assumes a budget of $175,000, and we're putting the 10% to each of the 3 reserves. As Ari said, if at the end of the year we collect $200,000 in the first year, then I will move the additional amount to make sure it's $20,000 in each of the reserves at the end of this first year.
And if we were off and the number was lower?
If the number was lower, there's a provision in the statute where we've got to raise that the following year,
You have to raise it. through
which
the tax
we were concerned about.
Yeah.
So the assessor has given us a number north of 200,000 as his estimate for what the surcharge will be this year.
And the CPC originally wanted to go with a $200,000 budget. I think the assessor's number was like 230 something.
230.
That was pre-abatements.
Yeah,
So it
it
really
looks
didn't-
like it's more around 210.
So this is all based on the 1% tax.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tax increase.
Yeah, the surcharge. Yep.
I think you have to fund it a year before you can, you spend the money they don't have yet.
Yeah, they can't.
Yeah, so the only thing that would be spent here is potentially is the 8750. There is the potential, as Ari said, a future special town meeting this year could look to tap the 113 reserve, budgeted reserve.
Do we know yet what they anticipate their administrative expenses being? Or is this strictly
No.
a ratio number that?
They've
we
not
have to-
provided us with a budget, no. Nor are they required to. CPC is a somewhat autonomous organization. But
And that's capped, excuse me, at 5% of the estimated revenues,
So no more.
which is this number.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's the maximum they could.
And they have to account for these administrative expenses to,
Well, they have to comply with, with the law when it comes to the use of public funds.
Right.
And they are tasked with internally figuring out what their budget needs to look like. But it's not, but the budget is not subject to the board's approval, my approval, or the town meeting's approval, other than
yes.
5%, yeah. It's really meant for kind of basic support. In larger localities where you've got some millions of dollars of CBA money, maybe you'll have a position whose job it is to help administer the program, something like that. So in New Bedford, we had that. But, in this case, it's a very small number. Now, the number will grow. This number does not include the state match, which won't occur until fall of FY
Next year.
fall next year. So the number that they collect in '24, will include state match, will be significantly higher than whatever they collect this year. The match right now is running about 40-something%.
It's estimated at only 31 this year, but you're right, it was at 44, 45%.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Does that match get ratioed the same way as whatever we set aside, or?
Yeah, it's all considered fund revenue. And they'll receive a notice that, they receive the notice retrospectively. So
Right.
when we file the recap, it's
It's typically in October or November.
November, then we'll be eligible for our match.
So if we weren't to do it now, is it something they could do at the special town meeting before the annual in the spring if they really thought they were gonna have something to fund between then and the end of June?
It would be after we've set the tax rate, and as part of the tax rate setting process, there is a component that relates to this. So if we did nothing now, this fall, there would be no funds available for them until July 1st.
Right.
Till 24.
Which is how it's designed to work.
Mm-hmm.
They're asking for
That's
exception.
the way it's typically, yeah.
Usually and I told the CBC this, and again, they can do what they want, that usually it's traditional that then the first year, the committee spends most of its time developing the plan, coming up with the application process, and figuring out what it, and figuring out what it's all about, working with the committee, liaison with the various committees that are stakeholders, and kind of figuring out what the process is going to be. There's a desire among, and I want to speak for them, but there was a desire among certain members to hit the ground running as fast as possible.
Have they worked out that application process at all yet?
As far as I know, I'm still working on the plan.
Any recommendations or thoughts? I feel a little bit like cart before the horse, but.
Yeah, it's a lot of
I don't
copy for the
think
horse.
it's
I
the
think
best
it needs
practice
to be waited
to
and
do
be
this.
done as planned.
It sounds like there's avenues where, if necessary, it could be done later at tax rate time or.
But again, the risk is the 8750 would be spent. It is different than what we initially recommended, but there's not a whole lot more risk. I mean, they'd have to go back to town meeting to actually utilize any of these other funds.
I do think the risk in terms of having a surplus of the tax rate, I think that's very, very low. I think it's a very conservative number. I'm not real worried about that.
Yeah, neither am I. No.
And if this isn't approved, given that the $5,000 offer is now off the table, then they'll have no administrative money to go through the year. I'd figure something out. I'd work with them somehow. We'd find somebody to do it internally. So
How much administrative work would there be if they don't have an application process and they're not processing anything at this
and
point?
talks of surveys and things like
Surveys,
that. It's
yeah.
hard to say. Again, I haven't seen a specific plan.
Mr. Chairman, just so the board knows, the town is going to provide any legal services and not charge them
Right.
back. Any
Thank
administrative
you. Yeah,
services that we have,
yeah.
we're not charging them back.
Yeah.
No, secretarial, minutes and
Right.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why this is such a big deal.
Yeah, no,
Really, the expenses are being absorbed by the town anyways, and $8,700 isn't going to go far, at all. We know
Yeah.
that in today's environment. But anyways.
And especially with Katie's point, if we don't have the entire process fleshed out to understand not just what we're going to go after, but how we're going to go after it.
And we have offered, we have staff detailed to help them out. Ms. Kurtz's in my office has been working with them, and the town planner, my president's working with them as well. I told them from the outset that, they shouldn't really worry about the money question, that we're not going to charge them back for things, and especially not in this first year, and that we're committed to helping them get off the ground.
I mean, if I understood correctly, they didn't want the 5,000 from the select board because they didn't want to use tax money for this purpose, but if they're going to accept the services of town council and secretarial services and such, you're essentially using tax money through resources.
And let's be honest, all of their funds are tax funds.
Well, yeah, tax surcharge, call it what you want, it's still my real estate tax.
So from our standpoint, Mr. Chairman, from my personal standpoint, the town had a vote. They voted for CPA, and so it's my job to do whatever I have to do to help work with them and help them get it off the ground. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate the eagerness for sure, and I think CPA is a good thing.
We're only talking 8,700 that we're
Yes.
approving. This is cash and P&L, right?
I
So
don't
it's
think
not,
that's
it's less than a percentage.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't think it's even something we should be wasting this much time on.
No, it's
Yeah.
not. I mean, I like understanding the process of what would normally be recommended. But, I mean, anybody want to make a motion one way or the other? Approve, not approve, no recommendation?
I'll make a motion not to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second, so is there any further discussion? Okay, we'll go to a vote then. All right, so the motion on the floor is to not recommend passage of Article 5. I will ask, does anybody want any of the reasoning that we've discussed put into the read? So all of our votes, we're gonna put into the book for town meeting, correct? Which we've not had a chance to do the past couple of years. So we have an opportunity either to speak from the
We'll have the
desk.
recommendation. We'll have the finance committee recommendation in the book. If there's something else you want us to put, for like if it's a negative recommendation, give us the language. We'll be happy to put that in.
Okay. All right, so the motion is to not recommend, meaning that a yes vote is to not recommend. If you feel otherwise, you would be a nay, correct? There's a lot of like
Yes.
negatives in there.
Yes is no.
Yes is no. In this form, at least. Okay. Yes is no. Okay. Day, I'm going to say no. Dorosha?
Yes.
Constant?
Yes.
Lynch?
No.
Blanca?
Aye.
Okay, so that was 3 ayes to 2 noes, so the recommendation is not to approve Article 5. Thank you for the discussion. All right, Article 6, I think we've already probably burnt that candle. But is there any other questions or such? This is the one changing the bylaws about the budgeting calendar. Okay. Motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Need a second?
Second.
All right, let's see. Day, aye. Dorosha?
Aye.
Constant?
Aye.
Lynch?
Aye.
Wonka?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Article 7.
That's the MHC designation,
All right, they've been working on this a long time, haven't they? Well, they've been wanting to get the historical status for a long time, but this just allows us to, remind me, we found out it's easier than it
So
could
we
be.
get eligible for grants from the MHC.
Okay. Any questions from first review? Larry? this is
No,
okay?
I have no questions on this one.
Okay. Anybody have a motion to approve or not approve?
So moved. Or to approve. Sorry.
It's all right.
Second.
Okay. Day, aye. Dorosha?
Aye.
Costin?
Aye.
Lynch?
Aye.
Wonka?
Aye.
All right. All right, Article 8. This is one of the first I'd flagged as one that we may not have a recommendation on. So this was the Community Preservation Committee bylaw. Let's see, what was the big part here? Removing the Housing Authority and just rearranging the deck chairs on the membership. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's basically, so the original bylaw, and I've mentioned this before, in meetings anyway, the original bylaw as constructed in 2005 was flawed. It was the template bylaw apparently the template bylaw that the Community Preservation Coalition had out there, which went off the law, which said that designated a member of the town's Affordable Housing Authority, which we don't have. So, town's housing authority, I'm sorry, which we don't have. So, the remedy for that according to the state, is to put in somebody who has, experience in those areas, the areas that are listed for affordable housing.
Does anybody have an opinion on if they do want to have a recommendation on this one, or do we want to save this for a bundled vote at the end?
Yeah, I agree.
Anybody feel otherwise? Okay, we'll move to 9. 9, I believe, is to add an associate member to the planning board. So the chair could designate an associate member to sit on the board for special permit applications if somebody else is absent or unable to act for one or more reasons.
That's how it fit. That's a no cost. So that's gonna be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a free, as volunteer
Associate's a
board,
voting member?
only for the purposes of special permits.
Right.
So,
This construct allowed in state law.
so if one member has to recuse themselves or such, the chair is able to appoint the associate member to vote on just the special permit.
Alternate chair.
Yep. All right. Keep it, or do you want to have a specific?
I agree.
Okay. 10, this one allows planning board members, ZBA members, and conservation commission members to still vote on, I forget if this is related only to special permits or not. They can miss a meeting, and still be able to vote. They can miss one meeting, if I remember correctly.
It is 3923D is special permits, yes.
So it's special permits only, okay.
It's called the Mullen Rule.
Fancy.
Yeah. No recommendation.
Hold it. Cut it. Hold it. 11, I believe this is kind of a cleanup. There was one place in the zoning bylaws that did not remove off-premises signs. So they're looking to just remove 746. Hold it.
Yeah.
Okay. Article 12 is changing the setbacks in business districts. So the planning board can, by special permit, reduce them by 50% if they so desire.
Hold it.
Good. 13. So this is changing the zoning bylaws to, keep me honest here, we are adding section in 413, a specific line for warehouses, offices, or facilities for distributing merchandise over 100,000 square feet,
It puts them as a special permit requirement for
In-
industrial.
just in industrial.
Industrial business, yeah.
Okay, is this where we're changing the mixed use?
No,
No, that's
Okay.
coming up.
that's
Okay.
17 out of it.
It's not the one with signs on the
Not
lines.
there yet. It's a comment, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, so I think the only comment I had was this leaves 2 lines in that section. One that will say over 100,000 square feet, one that doesn't. So that was the only thing I had a question on. Do you want to hold it? Do you want to make a recommendation?
I would hold it. I just don't see how our finance committee needs to make a vote on this.
Okay,
I agree.
I'm fine with that.
Right, so, and I'm looking at my notes, this article again just requires, changes it to a special permit.
15 and 17, not bad. Yeah.
Specifically for over 100,000 square feet.
Right, okay.
That's all it does. It's part of this, there's a suite of things that the planning board did in wake of the recent events. And one of those was this, the other one is Article 14, which is removal of the DOD.
Yeah, I think we could, this wasn't on your list though. This wasn't on your, but I think we could,
I left it in there just given
Yeah,
the
I think-
temperature of town,
I
if
think I
anybody wanted to
agree.
discuss it. We can hold it?
yeah.
Okay. Article 14, removement of the Development Opportunities District. Do you want to hold that, or do you want to approve or not approve?
I would agree with that.
Hold it? Okay, moving on if there's no others. All right, 15, multi-use zoning.
That's the one we're talking about.
No,
Yep. So, a number of things here in the article, cleaning up in some areas, changing things in other areas. Number 4, Ari, that is the one that is the biggest change.
And the bottom line is that it makes industrial a permitted use in the mixed-use zoning.
Right.
And the mixed-use zone district, as you know, is a very specific location.
Yep.
And do we have
The zoning map by chance?
I don't, I can pull it up my phone if you want me to.
No, it's okay.
I might
There's
picture of it.
one spot in town.
Ballpark in the area.
Hospital.
The hospital area.
That little
Hospitals,
triangle
yes,
right there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's, you don't have to show it. Yeah, I had a pretty good idea. That's just one.
I believe the hospital is the only remaining large undeveloped parcel within the zone.
So the CVS is like the far
Farm.
eastern corner of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then down.
Right, so it's kind of a triangle.
Okay.
Well,
And this basically allows, from my notes I took from the select board meeting, the change allows a warehouse and distribution from secondary to primary. Did I understand that correctly?
It wasn't secondary before either.
Oh, it was never, it's not even in the
No,
mix.
it was not
Oh,
used.
That's it.
Clarification, Mr. Chairman, actually, a warehouse can be put there as long as it has what they call an accessory use.
Right, accessory use, thank you.
Means if somebody went in there and they built a warehouse and they had their corporate office there,
yeah.
then it can be built.
Yeah, that's right, thank
yeah,
you.
that's right.
A manufacturing facility is allowed, as well, along with an R&D facility too.
And again, from what I understood, this is it's only this parcel that would, I know
So
that
this would only affect
other people
the
making this
mixed
about
use
that.
district, which is right, if someone, I know there's been a lot of talk about, this can extend elsewhere. The only way it can extend elsewhere is if you change the zoning map. The only way you can change the zoning map, another 2/3 vote at town meeting.
And theoretically, there's nothing that says this couldn't be changed at a later time anyways.
Right.
So they could choose to come back with another
If you wanted to,
article
yeah. Yeah,
to
no,
say,
but that'd
no,
also
we're
be
gonna-
2/3.
if this passed in
Yeah.
2 weeks, someone can come back in 2 years or remove
Right.
it again, like the DOD's potentially going to be
Right.
removed.
Yeah, and that would also be a 2/3 vote, just like removal of the DOD is going to be a 2/3 vote. So,
The only thought I had on including this for discussion was, we know that changing this changes the zoning. It does not immediately grant any particular project from being built. It still has to go through all the normal permitting processes. It's what do we see as the potential impact of the town, whether it is potential income through new growth, whether it's costs associated to town resources that go into a different kind of development. I don't know if anybody has strong feelings one way or the other.
I think the town has to grow, so can't survive on resident tax revenue only, so the only way you're gonna grow is with commercial.
And what's the alternative? It's gonna go back on the market and sit there vacant for another 10 years.
or it could be a 40B.
That's right, exactly, 40, which we all know
You
the
could fit,
financial impact.
and not to sound too much like Cassandra here, but they're you can fit a lot of houses in there.
Yeah.
And
That's-
the bipolar comparison between having a lot of residential and the cost of the town versus having
It's both ends, that's how it is, right?
it's 180 degrees.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's 180 degrees.
I mean, not to think it's too far off track, but we're here. Would a 40B even be close to be subjected to some of the same mitigation factors that the one project
So-
you presented is with berms and sound mitigation and
So I want to be very careful here because I don't want to be accused of taking sides too much. But I will say that one of the unique aspects of this development is that there is complete mitigation going on when technically it's not really required. It's part of the agreement. They do have to eliminate the asbestos, no question about that. But there are other ways to address what's really not, we're not talking about like, we're not talking about, it's like contained with PCBs and things like that. It's medical waste landfill. So there are ways you can cap it, you can work, you can block, you can dam it off. There are things you can do there, and it's not necessarily required to remove it to be able to develop that site. In this case, the developer is committed to clean slate.
Right.
And that's kind of unique. So that's worth a lot of money to the town, I think, or to the community.
in the select board, as far from what I understand from the last select board meeting, the planning meeting is trying to go through a development agreement of some kind to shore up even more contingencies and
Yeah.
promises if that project were ever approved.
The select board is committed to trying to get this development agreement completed and signed before before town meeting. Hopefully on Monday, the select board will be voting on, we'll have to see how that all goes down.
And this is the third potential project in 30 years, 25, 30 years. And we heard the other night, was the owner of Rhino Capital Planning said if this doesn't pass, they're looking at potentially selling.
So if this were to not pass and it gets sold, this is a parcel that could be impacted by those new MBTA zoning, where it would fit into their housing requirements.
Yeah,
Right.
even if it wasn't MBTA zoning, we're still short.
Yeah, but I mean, that makes it,
So 40, yeah, now you could get some pretty sizable density in there with 40B.
yeah, and that'd be kind of the desired.
I mean,
Yes,
I
with those
did a
new
full
zoning.
analysis of how many units you could do, but you know, for some building, put 700 units in, even if you put 500 units in,
Yeah.
you know, you're talking, you know, you're probably talking best case 600-700 school kids. You know, that's another school.
Plus more strain on the infrastructure.
Police and fire
Police
and
and fire.
all that stuff. Yeah, sure.
Where if you, and the tax revenue from it's minimal compared to a commercial building. I'm assuming the commercial is gonna be higher
$500,000.
without a stress on community assets like schools and
Yeah.
so forth.
How would sewer, would they have to tie in the middle row or something? Is there a
None of
septic
ours
feasibility
says they're close to
Yeah, is it gonna be
capacity, aren't
septic? Yeah,
they?
how's that gonna work?
They could do septic there,
for a big residential?
They'd have to do their own.
What did the hospital use?
packet plant, you know.
Give an example, the 200 units at the T-station are on 11 acres of land,
Right,
and they have a wastewater treatment plant.
right, so you do
Oh,
packet.
they put a plant there.
Yeah, you put a packet plant.
The 100 units, the additional one that we'll put there, have septic systems for a group of buildings, because they didn't want to build a wastewater treatment plant, so
Okay.
it certainly is doable. Yeah. Just want to follow up on the question about the development agreement. The development agreement, which was voted unanimously by the planning board and selectmen the other night in executive session, because it had to do with pending litigation, that all the conditions that were in the special permit that was originally approved a year or so ago are in this development agreement, plus new ones. So I would suggest, Ari, we give them a copy of that agreement so they can see what the conditions are, and they're pretty extensive. And this is a contract between the developer and the town. And if they don't do it, the permit doesn't get issued. And the cleanup has to be done before anything is permitted as well, so.
I assume they still have to go through the normal site plan review and
So
such.
I'll do another site plan review.
So planning would still be able to execute that process on top of an agreement.
Yep,
That's correct.
that's
Yeah.
correct.
And there's still potential further litigation?
Well, the litigation is that the developer has appealed the decision of the court, okay? I really can't say any more
Yeah,
than that.
I get it. I'm just,
Yeah.
I'm more concerned about our expensive litigation, the town.
Well, Rhino is defending that.
So they're defending.
We do have a
The town
representative.
has had some litigation costs,
But not much.
but not, you know, I looked recently, it's like 12,000 and change. So it's, you know, which is, it's money, it's, like, you know, but it's not, you know what I mean? Yeah, because we're kind of a third party through this whole thing.
But Mr. Chairman, just to follow up, you know, I'm gonna be conservative, 500 units of foot, not all foot, 20% would be, of units that go in there. We're talking, usually it's 1.5 kids per unit, I'm gonna use one.
Yep.
Okay? If I use one, that's a 45% increase in our student population, just for the town of Lakeville. I'm not talking about Freetown, I'm talking about the town of Lakeville.
Right.
You gotta
We're
build,
building a new school.
yeah, you know, elementary schools.
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, it's staggering, you know?
And if you can't comment yet, that's fine. Actually, no, sorry, it's wrong development. Theoretically, if the 40B goes in there, they're only gonna have to do a certain percentage of affordable anyways.
20%.
And then, you know, they're gonna structure it probably in a way it's the bare minimum, and it's not gonna move us any closer to safe harbor.
No,
No.
we're not even close to saying.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure,
we
that
were at 6.5% of the 10% BAT requirement back in 2010. We don't know what 2020 is for sure yet, but it's definitely lower. If you just know what happened over the past 10 years and what was built, you know that we're lower. We don't know exactly the number yet, but it's probably in the fours.
Okay.
It's probably, an unenviable position we all find ourselves in. I mean, how do the members feel? Do you want to have a recommendation on this? Do you want to put it as no recommendation? There's certainly a,
I'd like to put a
I'd
recommendation.
recommend.
okay, would you like to make a motion of your choice?
I'll make a motion to recommend.
Okay, do we have a second?
Oh, that's right, we're voting on passage.
Recommend passage.
Okay.
Okay.
Second.
All right, sorry, just getting my numbers right. This is 15, right?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
15. So we have. All right, we got a first and a second to recommend passage of Article 15. Day, aye. DeRosa?
Aye.
Constant?
Aye.
Lynch?
Aye.
Blanca?
Aye.
All right, motion passed, thank you. Article 16 is the rezoning of 155.4 acres on County Street from residential to industrial. I don't remember there being a lot of discussion the other night. Are there any other follow-up questions we have or any updates that have happened since that meeting took place?
Mr. Chairman, to be clear, I need to abstain from this as a butter.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it. If you
And
want to,
where the planning board made a recommendation against.
they did vote against in the end? Okay, so planning board's already voted against. If you have any comments as a resident, feel free. Certainly you can abstain from voting.
I can vote comment as a resident sitting here in finance.
I'm okay with it unless others feel otherwise.
Count. Yeah.
I'm not counsel.
No, I know.
Sorry, we didn't,
The council would have to
we
say.
didn't have the budget to invite them tonight.
Counsel would probably.
Say shut up.
Yeah.
I'll abstain.
All right,
I have my own opinion as a citizen, which I'll voice it at town meeting.
which you certainly can. You can come down from the stage. All right, any comments? Does anybody want to have a recommendation, pull a recommendation? Sounds like planning has already voted against it.
I would want to hold it. Hold it.
Okay, anybody else not want to hold it?
Yeah, I'll concur with that.
Okay. 17, we're halfway, no, a little more than halfway there. 17 was amending the bylaws to add definitions for usable materials or equipment. So primarily trying to keep people to keep their yards clean. Hold it, recommendation, no recommendation?
Hold.
Okay. You dissenting?
I agree.
Oh. Can we put a bylaw that limits the articles at town meeting? All right, 18. Amend the zoning bylaws, section 4, use regulations, 412 business uses. I believe the only change was to allow licensed junk dealers to be in business zone.
Right.
So they were, how did that work before? They were no's everywhere else?
They could, we have drug dealers in residential, we have them all over the place. Yeah.
Oh, so are we flipping the residential from Y to an N or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry, I missed that. All right, do we want to hold it? Okay, hold, good. 19, similar junk, old metal, and secondhand articles. My recollection was this, the summary is they basically have to hold books showing that they are actually acting as the business they say they are. Hold?
Yeah.
Okay. The holds are coming much quicker. I see everybody's in agreement there. All right.
It's just getting later.
Article 20, so this would adjust we would accept provisions of MGL so the town could then put municipal charges, liens on real property for, keep me honest here, lack of payment on any charges, penalties, fines, or fees, including interest and all costs to record them for any of the provisions in 1 through 9. So bylaws, statutes, regulations, et cetera, enforced by various.
Basically fines and violations, yeah.
It's pay up, we hit you with interest.
Basically,
That's basically what it says.
this does have a slight financial impact on it. Anybody have a recommendation?
I'll make a motion to pass it.
Second.
Okay, Adam. Day, aye. DeRosa?
Aye.
Constant?
Aye.
Lynch?
Aye.
Blanca?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, 21, we got property transfers, a handful of properties that were taken by tax title foreclosures that then need to be, for the purpose of sale, before that can happen, they have to be transferred to the select board. So the select board's got 1, 2, 3, 4, is that 5?
5.
Yeah, 5 potential properties they may be selling. I think they said they will try to sell these to abutters potentially first, so they'd have a slightly larger plot. Or not plot, but more land that's contiguous that they own. Hold it, recommendation?
I have a question. So it's Meadow Lane, Clark Street, Grove Street, so I'm assuming it's a corner lot of some kind, is that,
Yes,
they're not separate properties?
correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
I looked them up on the assessor's map. They were mostly very small lots. I think a lot of them were down Clark Shores.
They're not really
They're on
buildable.
the shores, right?
Yeah, not really buildable.
Right.
Those two were, there's one point where there was talk about a water utility there years ago.
Oh,
The town had acquired land. Or rather,
Moving
yeah.
to sell them.
Yep.
So I'll make a motion to pass.
Okay, do we have a second? There was a first to make a motion to recommend passing by Larry. Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay. Okay, Day, aye. Jerosha?
Aye.
Costa?
Aye.
Lynch?
Aye.
Blanca? Thank you. 22. This would essentially require sprinklers for lodging or boarding houses. If I understand correctly, the fire chief basically has no way to require such thing today.
Right.
Do we want to hold this? Do we have a recommendation?
We can hold on that one.
Okay, I heard one hold, so I'll mark that, unless say otherwise. Article 23, whether or not to accept Ledgewood Drive as a public way. At the select board meeting, they did state that fire had inspected the road, they were good with turning radiuses, and DPW was okay with it as well. I think there was a couple of minor punch list items he said, all right, but they were working on them. Do you want to hold this?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, last three are the biggie ones that people are probably expecting. Do we want to go back and do anything on the ones we held so far, or do you want to save those at the very end?
Save it to the end.
Okay, save it at the very end. 24 on the back page. Okay, Article 24 is whether or not to authorize the select board to petition the court to change the town clerk from a elected position to an appointed position. So as an elected board, I feel like we should at least give our opinion on this, since the clerk is the one that keeps us accountable as well. Let's see what came out of the discussion the other night. I believe Madam Clerk said that it's been an elected position since 1853. She currently receives none of the usual benefits, sick time, vacation time, et cetera, that employees receive. The state is currently trending at about 43% appointed, 56% elected. Might be cart before the horse, but if changed to appointed, do we think that the position would report to you, Ari, or?
That's my understanding.
Okay, TBD.
Yeah.
Okay. Rich, do you have any, has there been any discussion with the select board on if this were to go through what the report?
No, we had a discussion, but, we did the treasurer collector 2 years ago now. It's a similar situation, and the treasurer collector reports to our, we did the same thing with the DPW director too. So it was an elected position, we changed that.
Didn't know that.
So that's, this is the last one.
What is the benefit to the town, not the individual, or what are the pros and cons?
I think the argument, and again, I'm not the one proposing this, but I think the argument would be that the nature of work for the town clerk nowadays has changed quite a bit from what it was a number of years ago. It's much more complex, it's early voting, there's all sorts of other things that they do, a lot of ministerial and regulatory roles. So it's therefore in the interest of a municipality to ensure compliance and keeps out of trouble really, that the clerk be competent and on top of his or her game. So it would be a similar argument that you make to the treasurer, which would be that there's a largely much of the job, there's a lot of technical aspects of the job, which require a certain skill set. So making an appointed position would increase the assurance that skill set would be. You see that skill set as opposed to if it's just someone anybody could run for office. So that'd probably be the argument for. I think the argument against has been that that you lose certain accountability that's who's in charge of elections and somehow I don't know somehow as someone who if a person is elected then they can't administer then they won't be administering elections as impartial. I'm not quite. That's part of what's the counter argument that was at the meeting. So.
What's the budget impact?
None right now, really. I mean, if the position went to appointed, we'd have benefits. That we
The elected person is eligible for that.
Yeah, there's certain benefits that we should get now, right?
It'd be the accrued liability of her vacation time and stuff that you'd eventually pay out.
Yeah.
She's not
Yeah.
getting that now, which
Right.
isn't that big, I would think.
So benefits would be, an expense, salary would remain the same, or?
Yeah, it all depend on the market, you know, so I can't tell you that I can guarantee you that, you know, 5 years from now, we appoint a clerk, that clerk's gonna have the same salary as now, because I don't know what the labor market's gonna look like. So, it would become a position that would be recruited, you know, through the way we recruit positions, and therefore market forces would influence what we had to pay.
But the budget impact right now, it's,
I'd say it's negligible.
Yeah, I would too, yeah.
What we pay now, what we pay now is about 72, yeah.
In salary?
yeah, salary benefits.
Yeah.
Too, but no paid days off or anything
No
like
paid
that.
days off, no, but there must be some benefit, there's gonna be.
You get health
She gets health
insurance.
insurance.
She gets health insurance
Sure.
because she's an elected official.
Elected official.
Yep.
When does our health insurance kick in?
You need to get a stipend. before you really-
Wrong board and committee.
If you sort of move it from elected to appointed position, is this position going to become an open position right away?
No, she's committed to staying through, actually, she stays, it's, I believe it's
Through the end of her
structured to
term.
the end of her term.
So this
So it
would be
becomes
voted on
appointed
when she's
in
up
the
in her
term.
term?
Yeah,
And then there would be an open position that she could run, she could interview for.
she could apply for, or if she wanted to retire, you know, somebody else could apply for, or,
Okay, so we're really voting for the future.
yeah.
Yes.
So let's, I don't know when her term is, we just had an election, so.
I think it's 20, is it 24?
I think it's 24, so in 24, her term's up.
18
Does that mean we have to do an exhaustive search for a candidate, or can she, if chose not to resign?
If she chose not to resign,
We retain her without
She could
doing
be
an
appointed.
exhaustive.
yeah. Otherwise, you know, and I wouldn't, I don't think I'd overstate the cost of recruiting. You know, we recruited our treasurer, we do through MMA, cost $200, you know, to do that thing. There's, yeah,
You were relatively cheap to find.
Was that? Good to know. I'm an easy date. Wow.
In the grand scheme of things.
Already Sky, cheap date.
Just one more, and I know that Brian knows that, you know, the previous town clerk, Jesse, you know, she decided to do something else.
Assistant town
The
clerk.
She does not live in town. And we have Kim there now, who does not live in town.
Right.
And both of them are very well trained, and that's a problem. So if Kim says, well, I want to become the town clerk here in Lakeville, she can,
Right.
if she's elected, so.
So in that sense,
Oh,
yes.
she doesn't live in town.
In that sense, you're benefiting from a wider pool, a wider potential pool of competent staff, because you know, you can put out a state search, you don't have to, you don't have to worry about the electoral piece of it.
Okay.
That would be a benefit, yeah.
Is the requirement that the clerk in any other position to be a resident part of the bylaws? I mean, is that another avenue that could have been considered, saying the position is still elected, but the residential requirement is not there?
You can't really stand for election in a place you don't reside. I think that's,
Just asking.
yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not legal.
No?
So that's all it takes, I gotta move.
I don't know, how does everybody feel? Do you want to have a recommendation here? Do you want to hold this? Or just leave it to the residents, or?
I guess I have one last question. Where does the town clerk stand on this? Is this something she proposed?
She proposed it,
Okay. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
she
I wasn't at
requested
that meeting.
yeah.
Right, so I'm,
She also spoke against it a few years ago,
Right.
but discussions, situations have changed.
okay. All right, we can vote, I think we can vote to
Feel
pass.
free to make any motion you like.
Vote, motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve on the floor. Does anybody second that?
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second, so voting to recommend approval. That was you, Larry, right?
Yes.
First. Okay, Day, I'm gonna say nay. DeRosa?
Yes.
Constant?
Aye.
Lynch?
No.
Blanca?
Aye.
Okay, so that was 3 ayes, 2 nays. So recommendation to approve. Article 25. This is the recall, correct?
Yeah.
So citizen petition to recall. I reached out to the clerk's office today, and Kim, assistant town clerk, got back to me very quickly and said that we currently stand as of today with 9,376 registered voters, just so you can put some of the numbers into context. So if I remember correctly from the discussion the other night, it takes 100 signatures to start the petition process, 200 signatures of registered voters in Lakeville to then start the recall election process itself. So you have to have 100 signatures to get a petition to do it, and then 200 signatures to actually
And it's not 200 more, it could be, 100 could be a
It would be the
subset.
same 100 plus another 100. It's 200 total. They're 2 different steps. Clerk said that evening with the select board is $9,000, $10,000, give or take, financially, plus human time at every time that they have to hold an election. It also means they have to put aside, facilities to hold the election. The numbers right now, that's about, if it stood at 100 and 200, you're looking at about just a dash over 1% of our registered voters can start this process. 2% of our voters can take it to an election. I did notice tonight, I did print out, I saw on Facebook, these are being circled around. There's people suggesting amendments from the floor to change this to 200 to start the process, 500 signatures to call the recall election. So that would move us to about 5% of registered voters. Personally, I still think that, now I'll say again what I said the other night, I'm fine with a well-crafted recall provision. I'm kind of surprised we don't have one, many other towns do. I still think this is low. I wish it was tied to percentage of registered voters, not a static number, because the town keeps growing and growing and growing. Are we going to come back and change these, or does it make more sense to put a percentage there, and then maybe they have to go to the clerk and get a certified number what that is to then start the process? That was my biggest takeaway. It also, if I remember right, the way it's currently written, you can every 3 months try again if
Yeah.
you still don't like that person. And if you're successful in recalling them, they can't. Katie, you asked this one. Was it 4 years?
4 years.
Yeah, and it's not even if they're successful at recalling you. It's if you, so if they start a recall against me, I decide I have too much to deal with a mudslinging campaign. I'll
Yeah.
just resign. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
For 4 years, you can't serve. So it's
Okay.
even if you resign after the petition started.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I have concerns with some various pieces of the language. I'm not against the concept of a recall, but I don't think this is written for the best interest of the town. I mean, to do this every 90 days potentially, and to now ban someone for up to 4 years is alarming.
I don't, I try not to get involved in politics too much, but I do have some concerns from a stability standpoint when it comes to governance. I kind of agree with you, Mr. Chairman. I think a recall in theory is not a bad idea at all. It's level of accountability, but this one's real easy, and it's one thing you didn't mention that I want to make sure got mentioned is that there's no like stated behavior or attribute or activity
Right.
that could cause anything. Because I don't like the shirt you're wearing today.
That is my wife.
So I mean, it could be anything like that, and that I think that's a concern from the stability
The
standpoint.
scope is way too broad.
It is a broad scope, and every time someone gets riled over anything, that was my problem when I read this, gets riled over the littlest thing, they're gonna start this process, which is an expense down the road. And more important, it's not like any of our terms, is there any terms, every term in town is 2, 3, 4 years, right? So, I mean,
All the boards have elections every year of some sort.
of some sort. So there's always the opportunity to make a change at the ballot box without creating a special. Now, if you want to put in here, special terminology or wording in here saying, if whoever it may be was unethical or did something inappropriate or violated the law or what, then yeah. But just because I don't like the decision that Brian made, so I want to recall, that's not how this should work.
Well,
I
you're
mean, we have a hard enough time filling committees and positions as it is.
Well, I think you risk people not taking a stance and doing what's in the best interest of the town because they're going to be scared of being recalled. So
Right.
I'm going to take the easy way out and not vote necessarily what I think's right because I don't want to go through a recall.
Right.
But we're electing these people because we think they're going to make the best choices for the town. But you can't, just because in the heat of the moment, you're making an emotional decision that you disagree with them.
And let's face it, this came from an emotional decision. I mean, at the end of the day, this whole thing came from an emotional decision. Where it really should have just been a thank you for saving us money.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I agree with everything they say, but if they're going to, I looked at every single recall provision in the state of Massachusetts, there's not as many as you think there are.
Really?
No. And every one of them are 10 to 20% of
Right.
the residential voters. I mean, so.
Did you happen to notice if they had any provision on, like, if a member was found in ethical violation or criminal
Yeah,
violation?
usually something like malfeasance, moral
Yeah.
turpitude,
Stealing, investing.
felony.
Misappropriation
something.
of funds.
Do a lot of them have different time limits in this every 90 days situation?
I don't remember that
Okay.
particular thing.
Oh,
I mean,
that's
that is very, very restrictive.
The 4-year thing is very draconian too.
It's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
You might penalize somebody that might have done a good job, but you voted to get rid of them because you didn't like their tax bill, or you didn't like a decision the board made, for the town. And it's just, it's unreasonable. I mean, you're gonna scare people away.
You're never gonna get anybody to run for an office, let's face it, who really does?
We got, dozens of people running here. We have, what, 10 open positions right now?
Yeah, you don't do this for the financial gain, let's be honest, you do it to be part of the community, and if we're gonna start throwing people out because of tax bills, then I'm in, you're out. Because I hate my tax bill. But that's just how it is, there's nothing you can do about it. And that's what you're gonna run into, is people saying, I don't like this decision, I don't like that decision, because it affects them personally, not the broad scope of the community.
And it's easy, as you know, Brian, to get out.
People don't even read what you put in front of them.
Right on.
Because they,
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times you try to have the little, hey, will you sign this for me? And they're not even listening before they don't want to say no, so they just pick it up and sign it and walk away. And then
That's how probably most of us ended up here. Let's be honest, right? I stood out there and just handed people clipboards. So yeah, 100 votes I think is silly. At the very least, it should be a large percentage of the population, 10%, 20%.
I think in my mind, I would think you want, whatever the reason is you're doing the recall, to be such a known or egregious event that people already know about it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're reaching a broad spectrum of your residents.
A number of them require not just if not a percentage, certainly a certain number from every precinct.
Something.
So, yeah.
But whether it stays at 100, 200, or goes to potentially 200, 500 if somebody does make an amendment on the floor, we're still at a very low percentage for this process to start. Now, sure, an argument can be made that we might only have 1,200 voters that turn out, but again, if the issue is so egregious, you would hope people would show up to say, "Yeah, I am taking part of this in getting
At
the
the
vote."
very least, you need 10%. I think. If you can't get 900 people out of 9,000 to come vote, then it can't be that big of a deal to me. As written, as this is written, we could talk about this all night, because I'm sure everybody has an opinion. As written, I really think it should be no.
All right. Any other thoughts we haven't brought up yet, or do you want to make a recommendation of some kind?
Anybody have questions? Anything?
Almost up.
I'll make a recommendation to Con.
Okay,
Second.
first and a second.
What was, sorry, can you repeat the motion?
Recommendation to not decline.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just couldn't hear.
Okay.
Thank you.
Day, aye. Jerusha?
Aye.
Constant?
Aye.
Lynch?
Aye.
Blanca?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Not last, because we're going to go back. Let's look at some easier ones. Article 26, another citizen petition on whether or not to expand the select board from 3 members to 5 members. Interesting the way this works. So if this were to pass, and would this have to pass and then get approved by AG before
Yeah.
Section 2 comes into play?
Yes.
So assuming it passes and the AG approves, then at the next election, if that is correct, that election, which normally would have a member running anyway, will have a spot open anyways. The highest vote getting candidate would be elected to the normal 3-year term. The second place candidate would get a 2-year term, and the third highest votes would get a 1-year term. And then it would go back to normal after that, where it's every 3 years for the member. So that's how it would be phased in.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Just so you know, the process is that if this gets approved, the Attorney General approves it, has to go to the legislature. And
Oh,
the
it's
legislature
in general laws?
Just has to go to general law.
So we gotta go another step.
It's at least a year and a half.
It's an act, yeah, it's a special act.
Yeah, so this could be a long ways before it even takes place. Okay, which we've seen, some of these things come back from the AG with one word wrong, and they tell us to go back to town meeting and vote it again,
right.
so that it could be a while. Any thoughts?
Well, we have a member of the select board here, so maybe he could enlighten us
So
on.
first of all, we didn't ask for this.
I realize this, but do you see a benefit to a 5?
No, I don't.
No. I mean, we're a small town, let's face it.
You know,
And there are towns that have this.
This, very few towns of our size, and it's all of southeastern Massachusetts, don't have a 5-member board.
Correct.
Middleborough has one. They're double our size. They have water and sewer. They have an electric company. They have the Board of Health. The Select Board used to be the Board of Health here in Lakeville, and that got changed so that we have a separate Board of Health, which used to be part of the Select Board. So I don't see any advantage to it at all. I really don't. And it's gonna cost us money.
Agreed.
Because you're gonna have to pay a salary, you're gonna have to pay benefits. Nobody wants to talk about that, but they're entitled to benefits.
Mhm.
And it could be from anywhere from $10,000 to $25,000 a person.
Mhm.
So I just don't understand why, and, just because they want to do it. I mean, I know why, I have to say why, I get in trouble.
From an administrative standpoint, what do you think?
Well,
Do you want to comment on your future bosses?
he doesn't want to say anything.
Not to put you on the spot.
But hey, we'll put on the spot.
No, I'll fucking try to be pretty straight with you guys, so I'll say it. So I would say that there's one advantage from my standpoint, and I think what Rich said is all completely true. I think we were able to manage this organization. We've worked very hard to move this organization towards a more professional stance. I don't know if more cooks in the kitchen would help with that. The one thing that there's a silver lining for me, from an administrative standpoint, would be that right now, because we have a 3-member board, we have quorum issues. We avoid quorum issues. We have to work hard to do that. So I can meet with 1 board member at a time. Being a 5-member board, I can meet with 2 at a time. So that's the only silver lining I get out of this thing. It's a pretty small one. There would certainly be cost, as Rich laid out. I think he's pretty clear what that would be. It would be hard to figure out. I'm not clear yet on what our support costs might look like, but I wouldn't be surprised if it would lead at some point down the road to needing more administrative support, simply because you've got 5 members, just more stuff. And in my experience, every board member has priorities. Every board member has an agenda, things that they want to get done. And of course, that's a little bit of my time for all of them to do that. I'm happy to do it. But that I think with 5 members, it would just be a little more of that. So.
Mr. Chairman, I want to point out, and you were involved in a lot of this while you were a member of the board, that we all worked very hard to make sure that we had qualified people, spending the time and making sure that we hired the right people, and we hired a town administrator with a ton of experience, the police chief, the fire chief, the highway, the treasurer collector. All these people, what they're doing is doing the jobs that we don't have to deal with the problems, as you know, Brian, as being a previous select board. So there's been a lot of improvements and a lot of updates in a lot of areas. And I forgot to mention Todd here, too, and he's one of the best employees that we have. So I mean, from that factor, I don't see where, it would give it more responsibility, as you know, to hiring. To approve contracts, to go out to bid, do RFQs and things like that, where the board would have to do, we get involved in that in the past. We don't get involved, all he does is go out, get the bids, and then we say, okay, we're gonna do that. So that's made a huge difference, in just a short, very, very short period of time, so. That's just me.
Any other questions or thoughts?
Well, you served on the select board, how do you
Yep.
feel about it?
It did. It was for a little under a year, unfortunately, and then didn't run again just due to personal time availability. I mean, I think this is one of those issues where there's positives on both sides, really. Yes, cost would go up if we added 2 more members for sure. Ari has taken on some more responsibility. Things have been professionalized a little bit more, which is a term that sounds bad when you say it out loud. It's not that we were unprofessional, it's just introduced more process and checks and balances and such, and redistributed, the deck chairs to people to do things appropriately. I mean, I could see where, right now we know anytime a marijuana discussion comes up, one member has to recuse themselves appropriately. Then we get into, 1 versus 1. You kind of lose some of that debate possibility. If someone were unfortunately get sick for a long period of time, unfortunately, former selectman Hartley got ill, couldn't attend a lot of meetings for a while before he had to resign his seat. We could get into a situation where one member has to recuse themselves and perhaps another member is sick, and your business kind of comes to a stalemate to some degree. We try to work around it as much as possible. Remote meetings help. If somebody's sick, you can still chime in. If you read the town's bylaws and such, if the board sticks to policy direction and not the day-to-day interaction, which when I was on the board, we were short-staffed and we all had our project we tried to chip in with to help, and it became a little bit more than that, and that's fine. We all tried to pull weight. But hopefully if we can get to that point where it's primarily policy discussions and major issues that to vote on, Ari's running the ship and heading in the right direction. I hope it's not too much more of a burden on you, especially where you could meet with 2 members. That is a total pain in the neck. I have to say, being on this board with 5 members, I've found way easier because I can say something to Larry on the way in here and not worry about violating open meeting law.
Yeah.
That's, a huge win in some regards. You can bring up to speed quickly and not worry about it. I'm not worrying about it, but you're not breaking any laws. So I could kind of go either way here. I don't have a strong feeling one way or another. Maybe it introduces a little more diversity, just having more people that give opinions on things. I'm not sure. I think this is one that the residents will just tell us what they feel is right.
There's just one other thing, there are 5-member board, so I mean, you can talk to him, you can talk to her, Katie, or whatever, and say, what do you think?
Yep.
We can't do that.
Nope.
And so which means that when we go to a meeting, we're gonna discuss it and make a decision. We're not gonna make a decision before going to that meeting.
Right.
And I think that that's an issue. I think that's an important issue. That what you do, you have a 5-member board, you say, okay, Brian, what are you gonna do? We can't do that.
Right.
And I think that's big.
And
That's a big thing.
In a positive way?
I think so, that you don't, because you can't.
It forces all your deliberation to be public.
Well, you can't do deliberations, you have to do deliberations in open meeting.
Yep.
Ari can provide us all the information we want, we can go through him, hey, Ari, can you give us this, can you give us that, or whatever. Well, I can't talk to another member of the board and say, hey, what are you gonna do?
right. Yep.
That's a big advantage.
Yep. And
Anyways,
and if you had 5 potentially, if I understand correctly, because we would, we would do things like nominate member so-and-so to go work with this committee on a thing, or to go spin up this subcommittee on a thing, and you could never have 2 of them on there, because then now you've got a quorum of your select board taking part in that subcommittee, where if they had 5, you could put 2 members on there to participate. Just another angle of the same thing, really. Yeah. What else did we talk about?
And that's the last one, so I think.
Yeah.
Anybody have any other questions?
No? Anybody have one way or the other? So the change would be from 3 to 5 members on the select board. So
I don't really have a strong opinion either way. I mean,
Okay.
I think eventually we'll get to a point where 5 might be more beneficial. At this point, I don't know that the size of our town calls for it, and I also don't know that we have the volunteers to have people in there. I mean, there's only been one person running against someone kind of in recent years. Before that, there's been very little interest or challenge. And then, I mean, if we're not getting interested people that care enough to challenge,
we had
I mean, the last 2, there's been one person challenging pretty much. But I mean,
that one time where there was like 5 of us that ran for 1 seat. That was a bit of an anomaly.
Yeah, it just, I don't know if we have the interest to really justify it, or if then we're gonna end up either not filling or filling with people who get 15 votes, and now, I mean, what's
And
the
then-
quality of the people we have making these decisions?
And then your quorum is also based on the number of available seats, not just the number of people on a board.
Right.
So if we had 3 of us get up and say, I'm done, right? These guys would never have quorum to even meet. Right. I don't know, what does everyone want to do? Do you want to bundle it with the others? Do you want to have a recommendation one way or the other?
I'm inclined to not really, and to see what people think. I mean, the fiscal impact's relatively small in the grand scheme of our budget.
Yep, that it is. Okay, if there's no other opinion, we'll hold it for the others. All right, I think that is all of them. So we've got,
This one was a 14, this one's not a 16.
you are 16, which we held. So let's do,
About 16 if you don't mind.
yep, so we will do, let me write these down.
I've got your hold. Do you want me to read off what I have?
Give me 1 second and
Okay.
we'll just see if
You have
they-
your cheat sheets, and that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. All right.
I just want to bundle the stuff that Larry is able to vote on. So we did 20, 21, 22, 23, 26. So vote on those, 8, 9, so 8 through 14, 8, 10, 14, 15 we voted on, 16 we'll hold for another one, 17, 19, 20, 21, 23, 26. Okay, so let's do 16 first, since Larry said that he'll be abstaining. So Article 16 was the rezoning of County Street to the 155.4 acres from residential to industrial. So I'll entertain a motion that the Finance Committee has no recommendation on Article 16.
So moved.
Second. Got it. All right, Day, aye. DeRosa,
Aye.
Lynch,
Aye.
Plonka,
Aye.
and Constant, you're abstaining?
Yes.
Okay. All right, motion passes. Then we're bundling, say it slowly. I'll entertain a motion that Finance Committee has no recommendation on Articles 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 17, 18, 19, 22, 23, and 26.
So moved.
Well,
Discussion?
oh, okay. Nope, no, sorry.
Do you want to double check them or?
Yeah, no, I followed along.
Okay.
Followed along.
All right, Day, aye. DeRosa,
Aye.
Constant,
Aye.
Lynch,
Aye.
Plonka.
Aye.
All right, I think that's all of them. I believe we've hit everything. So 2 hours on the nose. So thank you very, very much, everybody. I know it's a long one, or the other night was a long one. Next time we see each other, we're in town meeting on November 14th at 6:30 p.m. at the high school.
Yep.
Brian, I just want to let you know I'm meeting Mattapoisett that night, so I will
Okay.
not be able.
All right, we'll save your
How many
chair
articles?
just in case.
We only have 9.
Oh,
So maybe I'll be able to come join for the end.
We'll still be there.
I'll just want to come to the next.
Just bring some pizza for everybody. And like, and maybe some wine or something.
It is.
All right, so it is now 7:01. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn Finance Committee meeting.
Second.
All right, Day, aye. DeRosa,
Aye.
Costin,
Aye.
Lynch,
Aye.
Plonka.
Aye.
We're done. Closed. Thank you, everybody.